Hello everyone, welcome to our research presentation. I am Shahla Baabood.
And I'm Shahd Hafeed Baabood.
We are from Salalah, Oman, and we are students from Dhafar University, the Education Department. First of all, we would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to take part in this conference and share our work with you. And now we'll start with the research introduction. Our presentation will be about student preferences to learning grammar, which is a part of a project that has been funded by the Research Center in Oman. This project investigates the effect of task design on the development of communicative competence of language learners who study English as foreign language in skill-based and content-based courses at the university level in the Sultanate of Oman. In our research, the main question is the students' preferences regarding isolated form-focused instruction and integrated form-focused instruction, and the variables that may affect their preferences. And in our research, they are gender and level of English. Our objective is to highlight the importance of considering student preferences to learning and to emphasize the implementation of task-based language teaching, as we believe that it will contribute to the development of both communicative competence and linguistic competence of the language learners. And now I will introduce some background information and key information about our research. TBLT is a methodological approach of communicative language teaching because it helps students to engage their natural abilities of acquiring language incidentally as they engage with the language as a meaning-making tool. When it comes to the issue of timing in instruction to draw a learner's attention to form, there are two types of instruction. Isolated FFI, which separates the attention to form from the communicative-based instruction, and integrated FFI, which embeds the attention to form within a communicative-based task. Now, it's important to note that isolated FFI, or explicit and traditional approaches, are the most salient approaches of teaching in Oman. And the last thing is that student preferences about second language instruction studies are usually rare and neglected, but we believe that we should consider students' thoughts and act accordingly. And now we'll talk about the methodology that we implemented in our research. The research adopts a quantitative approach. The reason why we selected this method is to have more insight and be able to make generalization about students' preferences. The participants of this study are 94 EFL learners studying in Dhafar University, specifically in English skill-based and content-based classes, and it was given to them through Moodle online learning platform. The questionnaire that we used for the purposes of analysis is originally developed and validated by Spada and Valeo in 2016. And for the purposes of data analysis, we used SPSS statistic analysis software. The main limitation of this study is that due to the pandemic, we had to make everything through online services, and many students were not able to participate because they are not familiar with using Moodle platform. Also, our research is restricted to one place, and that is in Salalah, so we are not able to make firm generalization. And now we'll discuss the data findings and conclusions with my partner Shahd.
So, after collecting the data, we used SPSS analysis software to test them. We wanted to make sure that our findings are valid and reliable. So, we conducted a Cronbach's alpha test, which basically measures and determines the accuracy of the data. So, we did it twice. Once to test the reliability of the isolated and integrated items, and it has been proved that the findings were reliable because when the reliability percentage is over 70%, then you are safe. And as you can see, we got nearly 93%. We conducted another test just to make sure, but this time we examined all the 20 items with no divisions, and the reliability percentage is almost the same. The second result is, since we already proved that our data is valid, so we started to work on the students' preferences to find whether they prefer isolated or integrated form-focused instructions. So we did the same paired simple t-test that was used by Spada and Lima. And from what you can see, if you look at the mean column, it seems that the students have almost an equal preferences towards the two form-focused instructions. However, there is a slight preference toward integrated instructions. Therefore, this test proves that there is statistically significant differences in student preferences. And this data is significant because our p-value, as you can see, equals 0.000. and the p-value generally needs to be less than 0.05 to be significant. We conducted also a mean comparison test, but this time to study the effect of our variables like gender and level of English on our dependent variables, which are isolated and integrated FFI. Concerning gender, we found, as you can see in the means, that although both genders slightly prefer integrated FFI, however, our female participants shows more tendency toward it than our male participants. And according to the level of English, as the table shows, both beginners and intermediate students preferred integrated FFI. However, advanced students seemed to favor isolated over integrated. Now, after presenting our results and confirming the validity and reliability, these are the conclusions that we came up with based on the data analysis of the research. First, there is no doubt that the students value and understand the significant role of grammar for language learning. And the issue is not with grammar, but it might be in relation to the way it is taught. And this is why we conducted this study, because we wanted to understand and to know what are the students' preferences in learning grammar with regards to isolated and integrated FFI. And we found that generally students mostly preferred both grammatical instructions, but they favor integrated instructions a little more. And this is actually surprising because communicational teaching is not frequently applied in Omani schools because Oman's educational system is more traditional and use structural approaches. So to find students in favor of communicational approaches is like a call for changes, to apply these methods that in favor of communicational approaches in teaching language, English language to be specific. Now, considering gender as a variable and finding that females showed more tendency towards integrated instructions, this actually might indicate that gender can affect the individual learning styles, goals, and learning outcomes. And regarding the other variable, which is level of English, as I mentioned earlier, that beginners and intermediate students showed a slight preference toward integrated, but our advanced students had another opinion. They actually preferred isolated, and this could be because they are more confident about their communication skills in the target language, so they need more aid in order to be able to use the language more accurately. And this is actually the teacher's responsibility to find these preferences in order to have a better outcomes. Finally, although many students favored integrated over isolated FFI, this does not mean that isolated is not as advantageous or beneficial. Each type has its own features and advantages, and we believe that the implementation of TBLT will greatly help to develop the students' communication competence and linguistic competence. Here are the references that we use. And finally, we would like to thank you again for this great opportunity and that you gave us to share our work with you. And we also would like to thank our university and doctors for all the help and assistance that they always provided us with. Thank you again.